So Psalm 103 has to be one of the best loved, most known Psalms, and there's a good reason for that. It begins with very familiar words. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. It's kind of preaching to self, isn't it? Saying, hey, me, I should be praising him. It's a good thing to kind of start our day with that self-preaching, if you like. Preaching to ourselves the goodness of God. Here comes the goodness of God in a blitz of who statements. Verses 3, 4, and 5. We've got 5 in a row. This God forgives all your iniquity. He heals all your diseases, redeems your life from the pit, crowns you with steadfast love and mercy, satisfies you with good. That's an amazing blitz of benefits, reasons to praise and worship God. Psalm 103 is coming after Psalm 102, not necessarily ever connected, but it's interesting how Psalm 102 is this cry from the psalmist, cry of distress, cry of despair, calling on God, asking him to step in and do something. Psalm 103 is the cry of gratitude. It's calling out and celebrating the reality that God does care, that God is involved. He does these things for us. Look at the bottom line of verse 5, this opening paragraph. So that, what's the result of a God who is involved, who cares? Your youth is renewed like the eagles. What does it mean, youth is renewed? Well, he uses a simile. In the same way as the eagle's youth is renewed. There's a kind of a picture that's being painted by using a simile. And the picture here is kind of unlike other birds, flapping around, exerting lots of energy, trying to get off the ground. No, the eagle is soaring majestically high on a thermal updraft of air. It's just a beautiful sight, isn't it, to see an eagle flying up above. It's the most majestic and loftiest image in the world of ornithology, I suppose. And what he's saying here is your youth. This God renews your youth like that. Wow, that's a beautiful picture. We mentioned simile, I think, in the last video, or in the last couple we've mentioned them. We're going to see one or two more as we go here. And similes are really helpful to help us to understand the concept that's being communicated. And it's important that we see them when they're there, but that we don't introduce them where they're not. Let me show you what I mean. Further down, basically in this psalm, what we'll find is that in Psalm 102, the writer was thoroughly aware of his own distress, despair, failure, sin, and so on. In Psalm 103, we discover that God is acutely aware of our failure, our sin, our weakness, our frailty. In fact, from verse 6 onwards, God is aware of our sin and forgives us, and he is aware of our frailty, and so he helps us. That's kind of the middle section. Here we jump into the second of those. As a father shows compassion to his children, so the Lord shows compassion to those who fear him, for he knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. Notice there's no like here. He doesn't remember that we are like dust. No, we are. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That's kind of what we're going to ultimately end up going back to. We're kind of nothing. But he knows that. As for man, his days are like grass. He flourishes like a flower of the field. What does he mean by that? Next line. For the wind passes over it, and it is gone. There's the explanation of the simile. He's drawing specifically on the temporary nature of grass. It grows and it's gone. Right now, my grass in my backyard is gone because of the weather. He flourishes like a flower of the field. There it is. Now it's gone. As soon as the wind passes over it, its place knows it no more. But, notice the contrast. But the steadfast love of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear him. They may be temporary in human terms, but his love for them is permanent. His righteousness to children's children. God's love for you will outlast your life. Isn't that a beautiful thought? This isn't a simile at this point. It's not his steadfast love is like something that lasts a while. No, his steadfast love is from everlasting to everlasting. We don't want to put similes where they are not. What we have in verse 15 is a very powerful pair of similes. What we have in verse 17 is a very wonderful pair of truths. Go back to the verses before this, 11 and 12, back in the God forgives our sins section. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his steadfast love towards those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far does he remove our transgressions from us. Is that a simile? I kind of want to call that an exactitude. I don't even know if that's the right word to use, but I'm making it up on the spot because I think that's kind of the point here. It's not saying God's love for you is like something kind of big. No, he's going to an extreme. As high as the heavens are above the earth, the biggest measurement possible, that's how great his steadfast love is toward you. And how far does he remove our sins from us? Like a stone's throw? No, there's no simile really here. It's an exactitude. As far as the east is from the west, which is an infinite distance. That's how far he removes our transgressions from us. Isn't it beautiful to think that this God knows our sins and forgives us? He knows our frailty and he strengthens and cares for us. It's a beautiful psalm, which is why when you get to the end, it loops right the way back round, calling on all of creation to bless the Lord, and it finishes up with the opening line, "Bless the Lord, O my soul." Be sure to read Psalm 103 and do precisely that, and perhaps encourage someone else with it too.